Welcome to the Forrager podcast, where I talk with cottage food entrepreneurs about their strategies for running a food business from home. I'm David Crable, and today I'm talking with Tammy Brennan, who has an amazing cottage food journey to share with us today. But before we begin, I wanted to thank the sponsor of this episode, Cottage CMS. Cottage CMS is a newer platform for cottage food entrepreneurs, and I honestly was pretty skeptical of it at first. But I have checked it out, and it is very impressive. Cottage CMS will be particularly helpful if you find yourself juggling a lot of different tools and find yourself frustrated with technology. I will talk more about them later in this episode, so you'll want to stay tuned for that, and also a special offer for Forrager podcast listeners. Also, remember that we're now doing video episodes, so if you're listening to this on a podcast player, know there is also a video version of this interview. You can go over to YouTube and check that out, and I will put a link in the show notes so you can see that. All right, so let's talk more about my guest today, Tammy. She lives in Vancouver, Washington, and sells gourmet cookies with her cottage food business, Tammy's Cookie Company. This interview is actually meaningful for me personally because Tammy reached out to me over 3 years ago when she was just thinking about starting a cottage food business. She signed up for my free mini course, watched all the lessons, and actually implemented the things I recommend in that course. What's funny is that she says she botched my advice, which led to her having one of the craziest launches and starting points of any cottage food business I have ever seen, which was, I guess, an indication of the craziness that was to come. She has now had amazing success with her cottage food business. She has hour-long lines at her booth at markets and has now more recently started to move away from making cookies and started to become an online influencer in the cookie space. She has over 150,000 followers on Instagram and is now teaching people how to make cookies and also selling her recipes. And what's amazing is that she started this business from absolutely nothing. She had no business experience. She was an empty nester in her mid-50s, and she also bootstrapped everything. She started with almost nothing, and she didn't even know how to make the kinds of cookies that she now sells. So this is a really great story about kind of starting from nothing, and ultimately you'll hear how her cottage food business changed her life. I especially recommend you stick around till the end of the episode because she talks about how this cottage food business has changed her life and what it's meant to her. It's pretty touching, and it will kind of help you see how a cottage food business could change your life too. So we have a lot to get into. Again, this is an amazing journey, and let's jump into my interview with Tammy. Welcome to the show, Tammy. Nice to have you here.
Thank you. It's nice to be here, David.
Well, Tammy, I know you've built up this amazing cookie business, but I wanted to talk about what you did before that. I know you've been selling or making baked goods for a very long time. So take me back to the very beginning of this journey.
Well, it all started when I got an Easy Bake Oven as a child, and I was absolutely hooked. My mother was not a great baker, and so I would be watching television programs on how to cook. This was before the Food Channel came out, and then once the Food Channel came out, I was really hooked. I just loved learning information, and next thing I knew, I started making tiered cakes. And next thing you know, people are asking me to make cakes for weddings, special events, auctioning them off. And so I started doing that. However, I did not actually sell anything until I started my cookie business. It was all sort of volunteer and doing these things for friends.
When did you start doing that?
I started when my daughter was around 5 years old, and I'm now a grandmother, and so that would be about 20 years ago, 22 years ago, I started doing that, and then I started doing things like being in charge of all the food for. She was a swimmer for hospitality and feeding the coaches, and all of a sudden I'm making food for selling at swim meets to people who would, buy food from the concessions. So I started producing food like that, but again, never being paid for it. And everybody kept saying, you really need to open a bakery. You really need to open, a bistro. And it just wasn't a stage in my life that I had the time to do that. And then when my daughter moved out and, empty nester, and I kind of thought, oh gosh, I'm a little lost without, all that in my life. What do I need? And during COVID, I'm rolling my own pasta and, I'm doing all these, filling my fridge, freezer full of gnocchi and special treats. And because we couldn't go anywhere. And I realized that I sort of needed to do something for myself now that allowed me to express my creativity, learn some new skills. I just didn't want to sit on the couch and sort of wait and for life to pass me by before I realized, you know what? I just want to see what I can do, what I am capable of, and see if people are interested in that.
I saw that you mentioned somewhere that you had self-esteem issues. You actually like not doing great when you were stuck at home during COVID and you're an empty nester. So what was that period of your life like?
It was difficult because, I had just gone through some big changes in my life. And then you just feel a little lost and you're hitting that point where, your body's changing. I had a knee replacement. I, life just was different for me. And I didn't seem to have a goal, a reason to get up in the morning, just to be excited about something to do, something to focus on. And then that's where anxiety sets in. You start focusing on problems. And I just sort of felt like I needed something to prove to myself that I was capable and that I was just, gosh, I could do hard things. And I just, after a time where in my life where I just struggled so hard and I probably didn't rebound as well as I thought I should, or as quickly as I should. And I just really felt like, okay, here is something I can do, I want to do, and that, I have no idea if I'm going to fail, if I'm going to flop, if this is going to be a disaster. And for a while there it was. But I just kept being me, and I just kept putting myself out there and being vulnerable and saying, this is hard, I messed up again. And then people just sort of started tuning in. And as that started happening, I started growing and gaining some self-esteem and realizing that I'm much more capable than how I was feeling at the time.
So I know that you started this business like around beginning of 2023. Did you have any business experience before that?
I did not. I had zero business experience. I dabbled here and there. I made handmade jewelry and I sold that, probably illegally. I didn't know. I didn't know I was supposed to have business licenses or anything like that. I did some gardening and people would pay me in gift cards and, garden design, just everything that was very creative. But I didn't have any business experience. I'm married to a businessman, which is really funny, because he kept saying to me, "Oh my gosh, where's your business plan? Where's your business plan?" I'm like, "Business plan? I'm just going to make it up as I go along. I don't know." And I'm panicked. I don't know how to do any of these things. I don't know even where to start. And that's when I came across your website and I was like, oh my goodness, because back then on social media, there really wasn't that information out there as well. And so you were the only person that was out there that I could find giving out where to start. And I just sort of glommed onto you at that point as my savior to figure out how to do this. But boy, I really bumbled my way through it. So I just go to prove that you really don't need to know. You just need to be willing to figure it out and to move forward and keep moving even after mistakes and being clueless. There's ways to find answers if you look.
Yeah, I was looking back at some of our emails back in the beginning of 2023, and you stood out to me as someone. I think I even told you. I said I'm almost positive you're going to be successful just based on like
I
how you were
remember.
communicating with me and what you were doing, more importantly. But, it was kind of a crazy time, right? Can you tell us a little bit about how you launched your business?
So, in one of your discussions on your website, you talk about how you got started and told people that you went on Neighbor Next Door or Next Door Neighbor. I can't even remember the name of the app. And I am terrible with technology. So I'm like, perfect. I'm going to do that. I am going to go on and, find out local people and see and bake some cookies, give them out as samples and see what people think about that. So I go on, and then when I sign up, I put my location down and within 5 miles. So when I put my first post up saying, who wants to try some cookies, I introduced myself, put a picture of myself. Buzz nothing, nothing. And then you advise me, well, do it again in a week, but this time post photos with it. So I post photos of my cookies. And the next thing I know, it's like ding, 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 ding. I'm getting all these requests with people's addresses. And I'm like completely overwhelmed because I'm realizing I'm going to have to make all these samples and deliver them. And I said, you can have like, it closes in a week. Well, I had to shut it down early because it was insane. And then I realized that when I made the post, I was supposed to post that only people within 5 miles were to get that message. Well, that's not what happened. I was driving an hour away to deliver these cookies, but first I had to make them. And, when you first start making cookies for a living, you bake for people, you don't make big batches. Now I'm having to make 120 cookies, which I laugh now because that's nothing. But at the time, I remember Super Bowl was going on and my husband's watching Super Bowl with his daughter. And I thought, oh, this should take me about 3 hours to do. It took me all day to make all these cookies. It took me forever and to package them. And I'm up late at night. So I get up in the morning and I'm panicked because I have to create my routes on how to drop these cookies off. And I leave at the crack of dawn. I get 20 delivered. I'm going up into the mountains and I'm going through dirt, windy roads. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm doing this. And I'm sending the addresses where I'm going to my husband and telling him, if you don't hear from me again, send the police to this address. This is where I am. And I can see signs that say trespassers will be shot. Beware of dogs. And I'm thinking, okay, I can deliver these because I said I would, or I could just can the whole thing and live. But I'm so determined that I'm going to deliver these. I come home in the dark. I'm gone all day. I'm crying. I only had 20 delivered. I was out forever, and I still had 40 more to go. So the next morning, I get back up and I go deliver again. And again, on the third day, my husband took pity on me and was so concerned about my safety that he came with me on Valentine's Day. And that's how we spent our Valentine's Day, delivering cookies as samples. And I thought, most of these people will never be my customers, but I made a promise to do this and I needed to do this. I said I was going to do this. So anyways, but the problem was people kept messaging me and, you said you were going to do, give free cookies out. And I said, I've had to, had enough. And people wouldn't leave me alone. And so I actually had to delete the app because I was being harassed so badly. Within a few days, I just deleted it. But I got that order out and I learned a lesson this is just not going to be easy. And starting a business is not for the faint of heart. And if I can get past this, I can get past anything.
Okay, so let's just be clear. This is very like unusual amount of response to a giveaway launch. You're talking about a giveaway launch, which is something I teach in my mini course. It's also something I talk about in episode 1 of this podcast. And normally I'd say, people might get about 20 people taking them up on their giveaway samples. Now I know you said you like you broadcast this to extended neighborhoods. And I think most people, once they realize, like, oh, well, I didn't want to do an hour long delivery, they would just be like, I'm so sorry. Like, I didn't realize I was sending this out to, areas an hour away from me. And they would have just canceled the whole thing. So, what caused you to, just bite the bullet and be like, I am going to deliver a free sample an hour away from my house? I don't feel like most people would have done that.
I just sort of felt like I don't want to start the business with broken promises. I'm the type of person, if I say something, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do my very best to follow through. I don't like to cancel out last minute. Um, it's just not in my nature to just give up. Just last week, I actually gave myself a chemical burn in my eye by using the wrong contact solution. My eye was sealed shut, and I had people coming to play tennis from 45 minutes away. And I went with my eye sealed shut and only one contact in to play tennis because I didn't want to be the person who canceled last minute or showed up and didn't show up out of 4 people. So, that's just my nature, is just to be that reliable person that just keeps showing up. I do what I say. And yeah, and I do it even when it's hard.
You're a people pleaser,
I am a
right?
people pleaser, and that can be a bad thing as well, because it makes saying no difficult. And that was actually a really struggle at the beginning of my business as well for me, is being a people pleaser.
Can you expand on that? Like, can you remember a time when you really had to say no and you resisted it, or maybe you did say no?
So actually, I moved to away from an ordering system just because I know it's not in my nature to say no. And I don't take orders unless they're for like a wedding or like a large order. And I only do pop-ups. And, of course, I do things for my friends or, I know once in a while, but I don't go out and deliver anymore. The trauma from that first year of being lost, people, they don't give you the gate code. I'm climbing over gates to deliver cookies because people forgot to say that, there's a code for the gated community, like just ridiculous things I had to do. Or it's a new neighborhood, they're not on Google map, or Google sent me to a wrong area. I have so much trauma over that delivering actually makes me queasy now, just thinking about it.
Well, you can look back and laugh on it now,
Oh yeah,
right?
there's some hilarious stories. Absolutely. At the time they're not so funny. I set myself on fire one time, and I had it was delivery day. It was a Friday, and I had to go out and deliver all these cookies. I burnt my eyelashes off. I had blisters all over my face. My lips were peeling. My hand was burnt. And, I'm shaking because, I had chunks of hair missing from an explosion on my little micro torch. I had to go deliver these cookies because people had paid for them. And I have to hand deliver them according to cottage food laws. I can't just go to my daughter, can you deliver these for me? I'm burnt. I'm freaking out. I'm crying. I'm shaking. And then somebody, because I'm on Instagram, people like to meet you. And, and they wanted to meet me. And so I had to, I was delivering to a school teacher and, I'm waiting 15 minutes. I'm shaking and I'm in pain and I have more deliveries to do. And then to smile and hug and take pictures with somebody and not say anything. And even though, I look like I'm completely sunburned, but they're funny stories now. At the time, they're not so funny, but they're a growing experience.
So, you talked about how it's not always the best thing to be a people pleaser. Obviously, you're like on the extreme end of the people pleasing spectrum, right? Do you feel like that's part of what's made you successful? Like that you're just going to do what you say you're going to do no matter what?
Yes, absolutely. It's a curse, but yet, it's also a gift because I just want everybody to have the best cookies and cookie experience they possibly can have. And, somebody will say, "Oh gosh, my favorite flavor." And I'll be like, "Oh, you know what I could do with that?" So I go to extreme measures to make the most over the top experiences that I can make for people so they can enjoy, um, a favorite flavor or experience or something that they remember. And so I go to extremes to make sure that can happen for them. And I think that has pushed me, uh, wanting to be the best I can. I'm super competitive, and that really pushes me as well. I just always want to be the best. I want to know as much as possible. I don't like not knowing something that somebody else might not know how to do. I'm constantly researching on how to improve and how to be better, and I share that as part of my journey. And it's interesting. I mostly baked cakes before doing this, and I had to really learn how to be a better cookie baker. And I started sharing that, and I didn't realize that there were a lot of professional bakers out there that didn't know a lot of these things and really appreciated that. And that's kind of how I sort of took off on Instagram, is just by, I learned this today, or, I've been doing this for years and I love this. I don't know if anybody else knows how to do this. And wanting to please my followers and people who would come across my reels, as I wanted to give them something of value.
So, I mean, we've already said that the giveaway launch response was abnormally large for you. And, you do these cookies, you do kind of larger cookies. Do you think that it was like the cookie trend? Because I feel like that was kind of at the beginning of this, crumble cookie type trend. Do you think that's what like caused this thing to take off? Or at least the samples caused you to get that kind of response?
I think it could be. And definitely, cupcakes were a big thing at the time. Before that, and there was the trend. And yes, I think crumble cookies has launched the cookie craze. And what I'm about is, I didn't want just something that looked good. It has to taste better than it even looks for me. And I think that's where I differ. Then sometimes, have you ever bought something from a bakery and you go to bite into it and it's like, oh, well, it looks beautiful and that's why you bought it. And then you go to bite into it and it's dry and it's disappointing. You feel like you wasted your money. And after years of experiencing that, yeah, through going to bakeries and stuff, I wanted to change that experience. And I think I got lucky with, what I wanted to do, and that crumble experience kind of launched me. But at the same time, I think I took that and went in a slightly separate direction.
Why did you choose to go with cookies? Because your whole background was in cakes, right? I mean, you kind of would assume if you were going to finally embark on this passion, this dream of yours, that you'd go with what you knew well.
Well, thanks to you, David, I learned that I could not make cakes how I wanted to due to cottage food industry laws. I wanted to do the Italian meringues, the stabilized whipped cream, mascarpone mousse, all these things that I wanted to put in my cakes that I always put in my cakes, I wasn't allowed to do. And I do not like to compromise, and I will not compromise on flavor and the quality. And so I'm just like, okay, that's a no-go for me. If I can't make it exactly to my standards, it's not going to happen. I don't know if you've seen some of my posts, like I can make some pretty elaborate cookies, and you can see that on a cake, came up, like my Elvis cookie and my Bahama Mama with the dried flour, pineapple flour with the glitter on the inside. Those were definitely inspired by my cake decorating. And I started unleashing that probably last spring after I got more comfortable with cookies. I'm like, oh, I really miss that playful aspect of it. And so I kind of started even pushing my cookies even further into what we would expect from cookies.
So, going back to the beginning, you had this giveaway launch that I know kind of turned into more of a nightmare than a dream come true. And, but it was it was obviously like, I guess, a successful giveaway launch. I mean, I saw that you got 19 orders just from the giveaway, and even a lot before you even gave anything away. People were just starting to order from you right off the
Right.
bat. So take me forward through the next few months. I mean, did that demand continue? Like, did your business just take off?
Initially, it did, and but then my cottage license did not come through for 5 months. I emailed them and called them for months, and I couldn't really move forward with my business at that point until I got that licensing so I can get insurance um, and do all that. And so I was kind of running sort of a side hustle with this, and so I kind of had to pause because I just really wanted to have that insurance going forward before I sort of too much in with the public. I was doing, things with people that I knew and some strangers and stuff, but it just made me nervous. And then once I got my license and I went to my first farmer's market, even though it was the tiniest little farmer's market, because it was the end of farmer's market season, nobody was accepting applications. Then everything changed for me. It was just like once I got out into the public, that way it just boom, my life changed. And then I couldn't keep up with the orders fast enough. I was turning down orders. I was overwhelmed and learning to do social media because, I'd never made a reel before. I didn't even know how to get the words across the screen. It took me 3 months to figure out how to get the words to go across the screen, what trending music was. So I'm learning all these other things. I'm not just baking. I'm taking orders, your website, you're figuring out all these other things, you're communicating, there's so many other things to learn that it's not just baking. And that's something I didn't even occur to me when I started this business that, wow, I love to bake. Well, there's a lot of things that maybe I don't love about running a business that takes up so much time that's not necessarily creative and it's tedious. The accounting part of everything, keeping track of everything. So, but once my business took off, then I didn't have any of this framework in place, keeping track of, my miles, like it was a disaster. My first year of doing taxes, it was like I'm pulling things out of a shoebox and, scrap pieces of paper that I wrote things down on. Because I wasn't prepared. I just wasn't prepared. I had no clue what was going to happen.
Well, speaking of kind of being prepared or unprepared, like I think that's kind of a notable thing about you because I know I've had a lot of people take my mini course and, I've had like over 10,000 people take this mini course, right? And, how many of them actually watch all 7 lessons? Like so few. I mean, I can see the numbers. I can't remember how many have gotten to lesson 7, but not very many. And then of the people that complete the course, very few actually implement what I recommend. And you did. And I know like you reached out to me and it was right before Valentine's Day. And I said, hey, Valentine's Day is a great time to run the giveaway launch, take advantage of that holiday. It was only like less than 2 weeks away and you did it. You actually went for it and you actually made that happen before Valentine's Day. Most people wouldn't have done that. Most people would have waited before all their stuff was figured out, before they figured out the accounting, before they figured out the business plan, the business license. You just went for it and started and then just kind of caught up as you became overwhelmed. So what is it about you that like allowed you to, be okay moving forward with this business even though you didn't feel ready?
Well, I have to give some credit to my husband who said, just go, just go. He said, you'll never feel ready. It's like having your first baby. You don't feel ready. You just do it. And I just thought, okay, this is what this is. This is my first baby. Because when I had my daughter, I hadn't really been around a newborn before. I didn't really know much. I'm reading books frantically, trying to figure everything out. I just seemed to be the type of person that it'll be okay. You know what I mean? I'll just bumble my way through it. And you have to be the type of person that who forgives yourself. oh, you have your little cry, you move on, you berate yourself, and then you forget about it the next day, because you can't be the person that holds on to that forever. Otherwise, you'll be stuck and you'll be afraid to keep moving forward. And I'm the type of person that has made a lot of mistakes in my life and made, a lot of bad decisions. And I just know that for the most part, if you try hard enough, you'll figure it out.
So I know it took you like 5 months to get this cottage food license, which is definitely way longer than almost ever. Also, Washington has like an extremely restrictive cottage food law. I mean, they have one of the worst cottage food laws in the nation, which is part of, I think, what caused you to even move in the cookie direction in the first place.
Mhm.
But, even though you didn't have a license in hand, even though you didn't have insurance, even though you couldn't get into an event, you still kept selling through that period of time, right? You still were making orders, correct?
Yeah, I was still taking orders. I had a website up. I had an order page. I, was going hard on Instagram, learning as much as possible. I was dropping boxes off at businesses. So, I just tried to make community connections. And that was really important with me is that I promoted other businesses in my stories and would always tag them and talk about them. And you never know, somebody might just tag you and you might be seen by tagging somebody and realizing that it takes a community to make something work. And working on your own is a whole lot harder than working with people with experience who want you to succeed.
Hey, real quick. Earlier, I mentioned our sponsor, Cottage CMS. And I'll be honest with you, when I first heard about this platform, I was pretty skeptical. I have seen dozens of software platforms built for cottage food entrepreneurs over the years, but this one feels different. For one, Drew and his wife, Kat, run their own successful cottage food business, which was featured back in episode 165. And also, Drew has a ton of experience building software tools like this. I personally set up a website for my fudge business on Cottage CMS in under an hour, and I was impressed. And clearly, I'm not the only one. Even though it's been around for just a few months, Cottage CMS already powers over 1,000 sites. So I encourage you to check them out. And as I said at the beginning, we do have a special offer for Forrager podcast listeners. You can check that out by going to cottagecms.com/Forrager. Again, that's cottagecms.com/FORRAGER. When you sign up, you can sign up for a completely free website that is forever free. And if you are wanting to check out the premium features, you can do that risk-free. Drew offers 30-day money-back guarantee. And also, if you face any hiccups with setting up your site, he provides incredible support, as anyone who has used Cottage CMS can attest to. So again, I encourage you to check them out. You can do that by going to cottagecms.com/Forrager. Now back to the show. One thing I did see before you actually got your license, before you started your first event, is you had like a period of time in July where you didn't get any orders, and you talked about that, kind of feeling like a failure, or maybe like you were going to be a failure during that period of time. What was that like?
Absolutely. I remember sitting on the couch and just feeling like the biggest loser. Like, what's wrong with me? Are my cookies not good enough? How can I do this better? What am I going to do? How am I going to make this work? And I'm waiting for that cottage food license to come in, and I'm feeling panicked a little bit, like just really hard on myself. I remember a baker reaching out to me. She had over 100,000 followers. And she reached out to me and just said, "I love your page. I think you're amazing. I'm learning so much. I think you have so much to give to this community and you're going to take off." And I had confessed to her that I hadn't had an order for 3 weeks. And she told me, "You know what? I had the same thing when I started." And that happens. And soon you will be as busy as you want to be, and probably busier, Tammy, and you don't see it yet, but it's coming. I know, I see it for you. And I said, I wish I could ship because my social media was taking off, but my local orders were not. And people kept asking me to ship. And if I could ship, I would have been you know, my life would have been in a completely different situation, but I can't ship in Washington. I have to personally hand the products over. So that was a huge barrier. And sure enough, after I said that, I put it out to the world. The next day, I got a whole bunch of orders and a corporate order. So it was just the weirdest thing. I put it out to the universe, afraid I'm going to fail, afraid I'm a failure. And it all changed the next day.
So, you were mentioning that, like, if you were able to ship, then, things would have been different because your Instagram was blowing up. And then also, obviously you said that you had initially wanted to make cakes, but the cottage food law in Washington doesn't allow it because Washington has like one of the worst cottage food laws in the country. And then also you were doing all these deliveries because you don't want to do porch pickup from home. And I always tell people like who reach out from Washington, I'm like, your cottage food law is literally so bad that there's not much of a difference between like getting a cottage license and getting a commercial license. So that seems like there's all these things that were like kind of not going super easy or well, like with the cottage license thing. Why didn't you explore or try to get into a commercial kitchen instead?
Yeah, like I just sort of, that wasn't a direction I wanted to take. And I know a lot of people probably would have, but I just really wanted it to be from my kitchen. I don't know why. It was just important to me. And I'm sure it would have been a little bit easier to do the commercial route, but it just didn't feel right for me. I just sort of felt like I just wanted to be at home base. And if my daughter stopped by and my grandson stopped by, I could stop what I was doing. I could schedule around that. I didn't need to schedule around my booked time at a commercial. And then I felt like if I went commercial, that I would have to make a certain amount of money to pay for it. And that felt like pressure.
One things I love about you is like just how much you are willing to bootstrap. I'm thinking about the picture you sent me with your ironing board and the cookies on the ironing board. Yeah,
Yes.
probably a lot of people would have been like, wow, I need to buy more racks or something for cooling off these cookies. But
Right.
you figured it out.
I just figure out with what I have. You know what I mean? Like I just an inexpensive way to do things. I don't start with the best equipment and I didn't start with all this. I only buy things as I need them. I just went up to a bigger KitchenAid now. I had a 30-year-old KitchenAid I was using and I'm mixing almost everything by hand. And people are like, "Wow, you're making 600 cookies like that?" But yeah, I am. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, I don't have one of those bakery racks where you put the trays in, you wheel them in and out. I don't have a lot of space to do that and to store that stuff. And so it's just figure it out, make do. You don't need to spend a fortune to start. And my rule for myself is I only buy as I need to. And if something's not working, if something's more efficient, then I'll, you know, I'm a little stingy that way. I'm careful with what I spend, and I only buy what I absolutely need to, what I can't get by on otherwise without.
All right, so let's kind of get into like how your business expanded. You finally got your cottage food license after 5 months. You're finally able to get into your first event. And where did your business go from there?
Once people started trying the cookies, and then like actually more people that are strangers, not just friends or friends of friends, actual strangers started trying them. That's important, because that's how you grow your business is by that way is, as many strangers you can have tasting your product, the better. And once that started happening, word of mouth got out. And then I got into, well, okay, I had a lesson here on this one too. I cried over this one. I was so disheartened. I thought if you just apply to a market, you're going to get in. So there's the big Saturday, Sunday market here. And they didn't even accept. They said, we're not taking any bakers at all. They just sent back my money. They didn't even take my application. I'm like, what? I was absolutely astounded. I had no idea that was actually a thing. Then I said, okay, well, there's a Thursday market. So I want to get into that market. So I take in cookies and samples and to the people who are running the farmers market. And there's a pastry chef. Thank goodness I didn't know that, who was on the tasting committee. And they were like blown away. They're like, I can't, just opening the box and smelling these cookies. And we were all like oohing and awing over these cookies. Yes, you can come into our market and the Thursday market, which is part of the same farmers market group. So once I got in there, of course, it's a little bit bigger. And then again, just things just started growing and building. And now,
Well, hold on one second, because I really want to touch on what you said there. You did not get into the market, right?
no,
But you did not give up.
no.
And you decided to take your cookies to the market managers, right? I mean, I feel like most people would just be like, oh, maybe I'll try again later, apply later. So there's definitely something about you that's like very persistent, resilient.
hmm
So, what caused you to like fight for trying to get into this
Well,
market?
because I knew there was nothing like this locally. The product I had, I felt confident that I had a superior product. I don't want to be like obnoxious. I don't want to be that person, but I felt that if they just tried them, they would see. They would be like, "Oh my gosh, we have to have these." And that was my hope anyways, Maybe I was delusional, but that's the way it worked out. So, I don't ever want to come across as, arrogant, like I make the best cookies in the world. Like I'm not that person, but I just feel like there was nothing here that was available that was like these.
And let's be clear that, I know you've had pastry chefs say that, your cookies are the best ever, but also like, I saw a TV spot. I know you do these TV spots regularly now. And just the amount of knowledge you have on baking science is immense. Like I've been making cookies for like 30 years. And there are so many things that you said in that TV spot that I did not know, So you dug into the baking science a lot in creating this, right? Can you talk a little bit about that and like, what I mean, you're trying to be humble in some ways, but like you do legitimately have a superior product, correct?
Yes, yes. That's weird for me to say because I'm just not the type of person that goes on Instagram going, these are the best cookies you'll ever eat. Everybody says they have the best chocolate chip cookies. I'm not that person. I'll describe them. They're crispy on the outside, fudgy on the inside. Um, I have a love of research and I have a deep desire to be the best at anything I do. And just experimenting, taking that science and spending hours and hours and hours in the kitchen, just tweaking and changing and minor adjustments, and how I can possibly make this product better over, over a year, over 2 years. And I keep learning. And that's the thing is that I think a lot of people say, well, my product's great. I know everything. I don't need to know anything else. Well, I'm always the person that's like, what else can I learn? What else can I do? What else don't I know? That's one thing I didn't realize when I went to teach the science of baking at the Bake Fest. Stephanie, who runs the Cupcake Project, said to me, Tammy, most bakers don't know what you know. And so I realized that a lot of people don't know why things work and why they don't work, and proper technique, and even just creaming butter. I posted a reel on creaming butter, and people are arguing with me on Instagram that, the temperature of your butter doesn't matter, that creaming, you know what I mean? Like, and these are professional bakers. And yes, it really does. It does make a difference. And they just don't know. So I really take a scientific approach, but I also take a passion of flavors. I just have always been that type of person that can put something together and, create recipes, like just cooking, always have done that. And you just know what goes well with and what works and what is balanced and what needs. And so I'm the type of person that can figure that out. And that's really important for me as well, is not just that the cookie have the perfect texture, that it also has all those background notes and subtle flavors, and how to increase that. So you're tasting something that you haven't really tasted before, but you don't know why. Why is this different?
You know, it was interesting how you were saying that, you're not the kind of person that's going to say my cookies are the best, which I feel like there's a lot of people out there that would say the opposite of that. Like you have to sell yourself. You have to be confident at markets or on social media. And you're essentially saying that like that's not you. You're not going to like be in your face with your marketing. So, I mean, what do you think about that? Because there's a lot of people out there that would say you have to sell yourself in order to be successful.
I think I let my knowledge and the cookies speak for me. And I will post things that other customers will say that have bought my tutorials and recipes, and customers who buy my cookies. I will post that. These are the best cookies I've ever eaten, but I will never say that about myself because I haven't tried everybody else's cookies. I don't know. And I'm sure there are a ton of amazing bakers out there. And I promote myself in different ways. I promote myself by being me, by being honest, my journey. I promote myself by sharing my knowledge. People can get the idea that I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm talking about. I'm showing up and being present and answering questions. I spend hours on Instagram a week just engaging with people like who message me, and people are always surprised that I message back. And it's like, I am going to message you back. I am going to engage, sort of promote myself is by being a real person. Somebody has taken the trouble to ask a question and they don't know the answer or say something. Of course, I'm going to acknowledge them and try to give the best answer I possibly can to help them out as well. I mean, people help me out on my journey, so I really want to help people out on their journey as well. And I think coming across as a genuine person is marketing as well, even if I don't intend it to be marketing. Maybe.
Say, I feel like even though maybe you're not super in your face with certain marketing aspects, you still like are very aware of what works with marketing. In particular, with your flavors, right? I saw a place where you said that you bring a limited amount of your most popular flavors to the market.
Oh, yes.
Like you specifically undermake them
Right. Yes.
as a marketing tactic. So let's talk about that.
I got some great advice is from a local business person is to always leave people wanting. And like if people have a fear of missing out, on social media, people will line up for hours at the hottest place they saw on social media because they don't want to miss out on something that somebody said was unreal. So I kind of look at that and I kind of think, okay, well, I want to create a hype around my cookies. So what can I do? So I'll do like post, for 2 weeks, and I'm going to introduce this at the market and create a limited time only hype around it. Yeah, and I don't overbake certain things, even though I could probably sell, 100 some more cookies. I purposely don't bring that many because first I want other people to try their flavors as well. So if they get there and they're too late, well, then they'll try another flavor and fall in love with that as well. But I want people to line up, and they do. So last year that was my second market season, and people were lining up an hour before I opened as I was setting up. And it was really funny because people were coming in and helping me set up because you get to know people after a while at the markets. It's really fun. And so people were helping me put up my canopy and my tables and my tablecloth and chatting away and making sure that they're not losing their place in line as they're doing so. But sort of creating that, the slow pan of what I'm bringing to the market always in my stories before the night before, this is what you're going to get. You get down low and you make, you get the light right and you just slow pan it. And so they look big, they look thick, they look delicious. And, I see so many people post blurry, unattractive pictures of their baked goods or AI pictures of their baked goods. And I think, oh my, it's just not hard. I don't have fancy equipment. I just even got a new iPhone last year. I had this really old iPhone. But if you just take your time and you do it a few times until you get it right and you play with the angles, you can really promote yourself that way. And that's what I do is I just try to take really delicious photos. And I talk about my cookies and people talked about this all the time when they come over to my house to cook, to eat a dinner, or if I take food someplace else. Well, before I had my cookie business, I describe food differently than most people. I describe the experience of eating it. I describe the ingredients that go into it. I'll say, this is a stew. It has a red wine with a demi-glaze background. And I'll describe it very detailed. And I use words that are luxury words to describe it because, you spend all that time making it and using nice quality ingredients. It's important that people are drooling just from listening to you talk about it.
We're talking about a couple elements of marketing, like scarcity,
Mm-hmm.
making sure that you're under supplying the demand for your products, and then also social proof, which is, having a line at your market. How long did it take for you to get a line at your markets? I know you started, I think, in the fall of 2023, and I'd assume that you didn't have a line right away on the first
No,
day.
no, no. I did not have a line at all the first day. I sold out, but it was like at the very last moment. You know what I mean? Like, a couple cookies left, But that's a really, really small market in a really small town. And I think there was 15 vendors or something like that, maybe 11 vendors at that market. Um, so it wasn't until probably halfway through the market season, which is from June till the end of September, that I started getting lineups in the first year. And this last year, I had lineups every day. And it just grew and grew and grew throughout the season till it became a bit of a frenzy at the end of people getting cookies. Because I was really ready for a break at that point. I was exhausted. I'm 58 years old and hauling all that stuff and standing up day after day in the kitchen doing all of this is sort of hard. And plus I'm doing, weddings and other things as well. So I knew I wasn't going to be doing anything else until the Christmas market. And so people felt this frenzy to load up and buy hundreds of dollars worth of cookies, and even then I haven't even done a market since the Christmas market. So my first market, like pop-up I'm going to be doing, is on Mother's Day. So people will be pretty excited to get cookies for Mother's Day. And I'm also launching some new cookies as well there. I'm doing a brunch box. So that as well, like a brunch box flavored cookies. And so I've been posting a lot about that ahead of time and what goes in and making them and posting, in my stories to get people excited already. And it's months away. And I started doing that a month ago. So you have to build that excitement before you go ahead and you launch. Post it in your stories, post behind the scenes, post more. You keep posting because people don't see everything. And you think they got to be sick of seeing this. They got to be sick of seeing this by now. And I still have people saying, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. Oh no, I missed out. I didn't see that. So you think you're being annoying to your followers, but you're really not. And that's something that I had to learn as well. Just post, 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 get people excited across the board and get the sound of the cutting of the cookie, the opening up of the cookie, the money shot, get the money shot well ahead of when you're going to be launching.
So let's talk about social media a little bit. You have over 150,000 followers on Instagram now. Obviously you've grown a ton. Do you feel like there was a point when you hit like a turning point in your social media and things just started to work really well?
I'm going to say my turning point for social media was within my first year. All of a sudden, I just really took off and I realized what kind of reels people wanted. And I learned what trending music was and how to edit things better and just do a better job with social media because I wasn't really sure, what to do and what directions to take. But one thing I also had to learn about social media is it is international. So a lot of my followers are from all over the world and they're not local. And so it really had a small effect on my local business because like my cookie company, you know what I mean? Like, so people think, oh, wow, you like, what am I like cross platform? I'm like 240,000 followers now. And people think, oh, wow, people must know you in, locally, but no, most of those followers are from, around the world and people are still discovering me locally. A lot of people don't know who I am. And so, so unless they go to the Thursday market, they don't know who I am, or they happen to find me on social media. So it doesn't always relate. So sometimes like joining those local groups for your community on Facebook is probably the way to go if you're looking to increase traffic to you at markets and to your business for local businesses anyways.
Is there anything that you did to like actually use social media locally, like to actually use your social media presence to boost local sales?
Going into other businesses and collaborating with other businesses, that was a big part of it. Their audience all of a sudden becomes your audience, and you combine, and now you have two companies and two sort of platforms looking at one thing.
So what's an example of that? Can you give an example of what that looked like a collaboration or
Okay,
what you did?
Richfield Brew Pub saw me at the market, and so my collab with them is that they would bring me in and get me local exposure to their pub nights, and I would set up there and sell $15 to $100 worth of cookies, you know what I mean, and it was nice for them because my followers would come in, and also nice for me is because people participating in this event would get to try and meet me for the first time and try my cookies. And they would do a really good job of promoting me, and I would do a good job of promoting them. So it works out both ways. The US Chef Store, I tagged myself lifting heavy bags of sugar and flour when I was there, and like gaining muscle, and I didn't think anything of it, and I tagged them. And next thing I know, they're contacting me and they're like, we would like to do something special with you. And next thing I know, they're following me around for 3 days and with a camera. And that was really fun at the market. And of course, it was my first year at market, and it was so fabulous because I had a lineup that day, a long lineup. And next thing I know, that turned into them doing like Tammy's Cookie Company shops at the US Chef Store. Next thing you know, I'm on a commercial for them. And then local TV sees that. And next thing I know, I'm doing a monthly spot on baking on the local TV station on Afternoon Live. So it just snowballs. If you're, I mean, not too, I was terrified the first time I went on TV. I like actually cracked my tooth. I was so scared. But I did it anyways. I was sick. It took 2 days to recover. I had a headache. I look at myself and I go, I don't look terrified, but I really was. Like inside, like I was like ice cold and panicked. But I did it anyways. And all that stuff snowballs. The more chances you take, the more doors you open, you know, terrified or not, you know, uncomfortable or not, I yank those doors open. And then, you know, just do it scared. I know everybody says that, but it's really true. You have to do it. If you really want to grow and you want to stand out, you have to take those chances. If you fail, you know, honestly, you know, you fail.
It's so interesting that you're, like this whole like TV thing came from just tagging a company on one of your Instagram posts. And didn't that whole like commercial thing happen like the day after you fell over your dishwasher or something?
Yes, as Michelle from Home Sweet Home likes to say, I'm the klutziest person she actually knows. I took the end of my finger off yesterday. Um, but yeah, I was rushing around because I was doing 2 markets, which was stupid, and trying to do 2 markets, doing too much at once, and I had to cut back. And I'm running. I left my dishwasher open, and I tripped over it. Thank goodness there wasn't any but knives or anything. Ugh, it's hard to even think about. But what I ended up doing is really injuring my back, and I put like a planet-size bruise on myself. But my back was the big one. Even now, if I sneeze every once in a while, like things shift, and it's like pain for 3 weeks. Um, but yeah, and I had to film the commercial and set up for market, and I was crying when I was setting up for market because I was in so much pain. And of course, it's a Thursday, my husband's working. He can't help me. You know, so I'm by myself and I have little tears, crocodile tears, you know, going down my face. Some of them lifting the stuff out of the car, but we got it done. And, you know, they helped me pack up a little bit when they realized how injured I was. They weren't there when I was unloading, but we got through it, and they made 2 commercials out of it, the 2 days of filming, and then I did something else for them, and they always ask me to do their corporate orders for them, so I'm always blessed that relationship has happened.
You said something interesting there that you felt like doing 2 markets was a mistake.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people that would do 2 markets in a week, you know?
For me, it was a mistake because, you know, I'm 58 years old. I had a knee replacement. You know, it's standing up so much. And also being at a market for another day was a day that I couldn't be baking or making doughs. And, you know, my cookies are over the top. They're not just big bowl scoop and go. Like they're filled. They have gourmet frostings and toppings. They're a lot of work. And just even packaging, you know, takes hours by itself. And I think if I was just doing like the traditional scoop cookies, I would have been okay. But I just couldn't keep up. I was exhausted. And with social media taking off, you know, and the amount of hours that goes into that, and the weddings and all the events and the corporate baking on top of that. And then my other, you know, after a few weeks, the Thursday markets, I started, you know, gaining, and whereas the other market was really hit and miss because they didn't really advertise. And that's something you really want to look for in a market is people who actually use social media and promote. So there's things to look for when you're looking for a market to be in, and not all of them are good fits. And sometimes to grow, you need to let go of some things. And even though you feel bad and you might feel a little guilty because they gave you, you know, a start, sometimes it's just not the right fit for you. And that was one lesson I had to do, even though I felt guilty and I felt like I was quitting, that I wasn't following through on my commitment, which is like big for me. I just realized that to continue to grow and make the best cookies I could possibly be, this needed to go. And sure enough, it really did. And letting go of how we used to do things, like, you know, taking orders and shifting our businesses as we grow is the way to grow. Hanging on to things doesn't allow us to grow. And that's a really important lesson. And remember, I keep talking about Michelle because she's been such a wonderful mentor to me. And she said, Tammy, that's how businesses grow. And letting it go and not killing yourself will make you happier. And there's no point in being miserable if you don't love what you do. And if you love what you do, it comes through in what you're making.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. You chose to drop a market, essentially drop a revenue stream in some ways in order to focus more on the one. And also, you mentioned that you are like basically baking in seasons now. You're doing the summer season, you're doing the holiday season, then you got multiple months in between there where you're not selling cookies, which is obviously like me. You could be making a lot more money. You could be making more people happier, right? Could be pleasing more people. I know we talked about you being a people pleaser. So what's caused you to decide to take these big long breaks in your business, in your baking business?
Well, it's more like what has allowed it. And what has allowed it is me teaching. And so I focus on recipe development and teaching during now. This is actually more my first year of doing this, is really not baking nearly as much in my off season. And even though like I'll be in the kitchen later today and working on recipes, and I'm going to be filming a new tutorial on banana base dough. Again, Michelle sort of said, Tammy, you know what I mean? Like, you don't kill yourself. We're not getting any younger here, Missy. And, here is your skill set. You're an amazing teacher. You know all this information, and people want this information and they want your recipes. So, make it happen. I want your recipes. And she wanted my lemon meringue pie recipe, is what she wanted. And so she really sort of pushed me forward in that direction. And then when I was approached by BakeFest as well to teach, I'm like, oh my gosh, I love teaching. And I actually, in my former life, before children, I was actually worked for the school board in Vancouver, BC as a counselor, and I did teach as well. So this was something that I felt very comfortable doing and felt natural to me. And doing so has allowed me to have income throughout the year. So when I go into baking season or when I do my pop-ups, I'm refreshed, I'm having a good time. And although I'll be exhausted at the end of September, when market season hits, I will be, I'm really excited instead of feeling like it's a begrudging chore to, constantly doing the pile of dishes and hauling and setting up, because it's a lot of work. I know a lot of times on social media, people say, oh, it's a beautiful fairy tale because they want to sell you a course, but it's hard work, and it's not easy, and it's physically demanding, it's mentally demanding, and you do need breaks. And as I move forward, I'm really happy with the decision to sort of move my full-time baking to part-time and focus on teaching aspect as well.
So, one thing about selling your recipes is, kind of giving away the secret sauce, right? Was there a hesitation
Oh,
to doing that?
absolutely. I did not want to do it. I absolutely did not want to do it. And again, Michelle talked me into it. She said, Tammy, this is going to change your life. And sure enough, it really did. My lemon meringue pie tutorial took off. It's with the s'mores. It just took off. And I was thinking, oh, what if somebody else comes in and they, buy my recipe, and next thing you know, they're at the market and they're selling the same cookies. So far, that hasn't happened. But, I've had a few incidences on social media of people trying to resell my recipe as their own. And, I just, instead of getting so upset about it, what I do is I just put my head down and I keep being the innovator. I keep being the one that they're trying to be the one that they're chasing, that I'm the one that's coming out with new flavors, new techniques, um, new science, and and just trying to be the leader of the pack on that, to stay away from, just there's nothing I can do. We have our terms and conditions, and it's not that I don't call people out and ask them to pull it down off their sales site or call them out, and that happens. And I do that when I see it, but I can't control everything, and I can't be the type of person that monitors on what everybody else is doing. So I just have to sort of move forward, and I actually love recipe developing. I love coming up with new flavors. It's a creative outlet for me. And because sometimes when you're in the baking season and you're trudging and you're in that market, you just sort of feel like you're a worker bee during that time. And you have your recipes and you have your methodology and you have your dishes piled up and you have the floors filthy and you're just trudging through it. But the times when you're creating something new is, for me, is the moment of it. It's like a piece. It's like a moment of pride. When I put out my lemon meringue pie cookie, I was so proud of myself. I just thought, look at that. I've created something that all of a sudden people want, and people will copy you, like, because they want it so bad. That feels really good. It feels like, at 58, you can still be an innovator. You can still make a difference. You can still teach people how to do things. And, it's kind of nice to be wanted and needed.
Do you ever feel like you have trouble keeping up with it? Because I know you post a lot on social media. Like, do you ever have trouble like coming up with new ideas, the things to post, and feeling like you constantly have to innovate, constantly have to put something new out there? Like, does that ever feel like stressful or a burden?
Well, okay, for social media, absolutely. Can be very stressful. I have times where, like, I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, I can, make this big, reel, make this reel, make this reel. And then other times I just feel like, how many times can I say that? I mean, what can I say that's new that, with AI out there now, you have everybody Google it, basically asking AI, you know, stuff that maybe they don't know, but they just put it out there anyways because AI tells them to, and they create their own platform from that. Where I'm always the type of person that I put mine out through experience and through knowledge. And so it is stressful trying to stand out now when social media has changed over the last few years drastically. And so there's a lot of pressure. Some people are just beautiful filmmakers. They have all the skill in the world, to do these things. And I'm a home baker. I just do the best I can, and there does feel like that pressure of putting something out every day, and not everybody is kind on social media. You know, Facebook can, I actually didn't go on Facebook for 6 months after, an incident that another baker was mad at me over nothing and just violently horrible behavior towards me, sent me a voice message actually. And it was so disconcerting and upsetting that, it threw me for a long time. And I don't, when people say, "Oh, you can toughen up," I maybe a little bit. I've toughened up, but that type of stuff is so difficult to deal with. And yeah, you know what I mean? Like people think, "Oh, you're so lucky to have this many followers," but people don't realize, which I am, but people don't realize the work that it takes and the stress and the constant. I never have a day off. Ever. When I go on vacation, I never take a day off. I'm always, if I don't answer my comments or my messages, they pile up so much that it becomes overwhelming. So I'm always, every day, even when I went to Portugal, Spain for 2 weeks, I was posting and answering because it's too much to take a break. You feel like, oh, your follower, your reach is going to be less because it's true. If you take a break and you don't show up for 2 weeks, all of a sudden, social media, Meta just they dock you. And that happens. So yeah, it's like they play a game with you, and and you're always trying to stay ahead of, how can I get more views? How can I get more eyes? That type of situation. And it is it is stressful. And last night, I'm gonna say I got out of bed at 10 o'clock last night to make a reel because something occurred to me. So, and then if you don't write it down, when they come, they go, you know what I mean? Like if you're in the shower, you're driving and you're like, oh, here's a great idea. And then it's gone. Maybe it's my age, but, you don't want to live like that, but and I really try and I've stepped back and take a reality break from that. This is, social media is a different world altogether. Yeah, that's something I'm still working on is my attitude towards social media. I have a love-hate relationship. I love the relationships that I've gained, from people, kind people and, the questions, and I love that. But at the same time, I just hate that dog piling and the viciousness that can go on social media, especially on Facebook, and the pressure that's when a reel goes viral on Facebook. I never look. I don't look ever.
So what is causing you to push so much? I mean, you obviously grown the cookie business, like, and you have lines, you're selling out every week when you do the markets, and now you're doing social media, you're saying you can't even take a day off when you go on vacation. Like what's motivating you to make it bigger and bigger, keep growing it?
Well, I think again, it's my competitive nature. It's just like, just constantly pushing myself. And, it's really hard not to compare yourself to other people when it's just constantly in your face. And so it's just that nature of I want to do the best job as I possibly can, and I want to answer people. I want to, you know what I mean? Like I just don't want to be the person who never answers a message. Like I just don't want to be that person. And also for me too, because I sell my tutorials and my classes online, is that also to me that's my income stream as well. And so that's a big part of it. If I want, I work really really hard at this, and my first 2 years I didn't make nearly as much money as I should have for the amount of work I put into it. You know what I mean? Like it just, I put so much work into it. When you're building, of course, you're building something, you're not, making a fortune. And I sort of feel like, okay, I work really hard at this and I've built my audience and I give so much free advice and I've helped so many people along the way that, I need to sort of be compensated for it at this point. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean to sound harsh or weird about that, but I sort of feel like, I deserve to be paid for my time. And that selling and that audience is sort of what's helping me do that. You know what I mean? Like to be compensated. So yeah, the harder I work, and here's the thing is the harder I work, the more money I make. And that's a hard one to step away from.
So you do think money is a motivating factor for you? Because I got the sense that, it was like you were bored, you're an empty nester, that, you were just looking for something to do with your time that you loved. But you're saying that you feel like the money is a big factor.
Oh, absolutely. You know, yeah, and I think it's in it. Yeah, you want to be compensated for how hard you work. And I guess I feel that especially after a lot of the abuse I take on social media, that, it's not all fun and games. To be honest, it can be downright vicious at times. Yeah, money is a motivator. And I've never made here's the thing, David, I have never made my own money. of my own, like that I have brought in since, I was 29 years old. And for me, you know, it's not about, oh, will I be able to pay my bills? Will I be starving? To me, it's about that sense of I can do this too. You know what I mean? Like, I can make this happen. You know what I mean? Like, it's not about, do I want to go on a fancier trip or whatever? It's about that sense of self-esteem. I'm chasing that sense of worth, and I know that. And I just, and I need to, again, work on those issues. But yeah, like we judge people by how successful they are. And sometimes that's how much, a lot of the times in our society is that success is tied in with how much money you make. And, and that's the reality.
I know that you got married a few years ago before you started this cookie business. What has your husband thought about the business, as it's grown?
Okay, well, I'm going to say he wasn't big on me starting. He didn't want like the mess. He didn't want the liability. And at first he was like, go get a commercial space and go get him a commercial space, go, and, do all this. And I didn't want to. And, he kept pushing my businesses in ways I didn't want, to be honest. And I just stuck to my guns. I just put my feet in and I said, no, this doesn't feel right. I want to keep going in this direction. And now, I've shocked him. He's like, he's like, man, wow, you have done such a good job. And, you just totally blew me out of the water. And, now he couldn't be prouder. And, he's a big cookie fan. And, it's, okay, for years, I was always, the housewife. People would say, "Oh, well, ask one of my husbands," because I was previously married. I would say, "What do you do?" And my previous husband had a big job, like a fancy job with a big title and at a big company. And nobody ever asked me what I did, or, "Oh, how nice your husband lets you stay at home," or "How nice, how nice." And it's nice to have people all of a sudden so excited by what you do. They don't, like, you know what I mean? Like, I guess you don't maybe, like just always being the supporter. All of a sudden people are asking me and excited, and everybody loves cookies and wants to hear about the cookie business. And it's, I get asked a ton of questions where I go, and being on social media, it just makes me feel special. So when I say, money and stuff like that, it's not just that. It's about, I guess I feel a need for some recognition after years of being the support system and being a little invisible, if that makes sense. So it's just nice to have people excited.
So we've covered a lot about like what's allowed you to be successful. You're a very persistent person. You're a go-getter. You're an A-type person. I think that has something to do with it. There also, you went deep into the baking science and like are creating a product that is truly an exceptional tasting product. And then you've used some marketing tactics, certainly, leverage social media to some degree to kind of expand this business and grow it to like become very, very successful business at this point. Do you think we missed anything? Like, is there anything that you feel like you did as you're growing the cookie business that has really allowed it to take off, that's made you successful, whereas maybe other people like struggle in trying to build their business?
Um, when you fail, and it will happen, people won't show up, you'll get rained out, like those things happen. You fall on your face, you don't give up. And I think that's for me is you don't walk away. I'm invested in my dream. And even, even though it has been a hard journey, it has been so rewarding. I have learned so much about myself. I have built my self-esteem back up. I feel like I've sort of found myself again. That was, probably the biggest thing, listening to your gut, knowing what's right. Still taking advice is important, from people who have experience, but understanding what's right for you and what's not right for you is super important as well. And your gut will tell you that something's not right and something feels good, doesn't feel good, it's not for you. And I guess to me too is finding people around me that support me and encourage me. And when I'm having a bad day, things aren't going well, is they pick you up and they help pick you up. You have to pick yourself up in general, but they sort of make it easier to get back up and go out the next day and keep going.
You mentioned, dealing with failure, but one of the things that I thought was quite notable is how you incorporate failure into your business. I mean, especially on social media, right? You're sharing your failures. You're not hiding from them. You've had many of them,
Hmm.
as all businesses do, but you're very public about those failures and you kind of sharing the realness with people. Can you talk a little bit about, like, was that something you did from the very beginning? Is that something that you learned along the way? Because I think that's a big part of what makes, like, you stand out on social.
I'm going to say the first time I shared a failure was very early on. I had burnt some toffee and it was black. It was just totally ruined. And I'm like, oh, and I was making a reel about how to make toffee and I ruined it. Don't walk away from it. And so I'm like, oh my gosh, what am I going to film for today? And my husband's like, well, film, film you ruining the toffee. And I'm like, okay. And sure enough, it did well. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And so people, they want to relate to you, and I think that's what people always say to me is I'm so relatable. It's because I'm them, like I never pretend to be perfect. I never pretend to be the best. I never pretend anything that, I cry easily. I get emotional easy. I laugh easy and I make mistakes daily. I wander away from the stove. I burn things because I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what would be a good idea? Maybe I should just do this while that's cooking. And I think I'm probably, like most people, like we all make so many mistakes, and whether we admit them out loud is another thing. And I just admit them out loud, and and
Wait, you say, you're talking about how you make a lot of mistakes, you're not perfect, but it also seems like you're always striving to be perfect.
oh yeah, always striving to be perfect. I'm always striving to do better. Uh, but in that striving, the pushing, you take on more and more and more in the pushing, and you're learning more and more and more, and your brain gets filled more and more and more, and you're attempting new things all the time, and it's easy to lose focus, and it's easy to, mess up. I just had a real takeoff on social media, and I messed up my auto link DM. So all these people are asking for this tutorial. 500 people asked for it, and I didn't notice until like 7, 8 days later. Now it's too late, and I'm you know, messaging people. I get to 100 and I'm done. It's like, you know, I can't be the only person that does stuff like this, that makes mistakes. And I think people see themselves in me. And, I'm going to admit, like, I probably make more mistakes than most people because of my type of personality. I'm doing 5 things at once. I wander off all the time. I actually just posted a reel about it this morning. I have squirrel brain. And that's what makes me so accident prone because my brain just keeps going. And, um, and I'm thinking about 30,000 things at once. So, you know, but there's other people out there like me. But I'm always striving for better methods and better ways to do things and, how to deal with my squirrel brain. You know what I mean? I try to be more methodical. I try to do these things and I don't always succeed, but I guess they they kind of make me who I am.
You come a long way, from starting with nothing, no business experience, building up this cookie business into a very successful cookie business. And now I think you didn't foresee that you're going to be like turning this into teaching business and selling recipes and all this stuff. So where do we go from here? Looking ahead, what are your plans for the future?
Well, I plan to put out, and continue to put out tutorials and classes because I really love to do that. To be honest, I don't know how long I will be doing markets, probably just pop ups, or maybe go into the big weekend market once a month. Um, I'm sort of hitting that age of retirement. Well, my husband being, going to be retire eventually. And, the last thing I want to do is miss out on things, but still, I don't want to give up completely up on it. I love it. It's become part of a big part of my identity. Because I created it's my baby, right? And I would love to eventually maybe do a cookbook, a cookie book, and even then, I don't even know where to start. How do you do that? What's involved? And it's a big venture to do something like that. But that's something maybe that's an end goal of that. But I want something still, and I'm not quite sure where the end game is going. But I keep looking and opening doors and looking because I still feel like there's something I need to do or I want to do, and I haven't hit it yet.
As you think back on the last few years, what has your business meant to you?
Oh, it's meant everything. Well, not everything. Of course, my family does, means a lot to me too, and they're the center of it all. But it has meant, oh gosh, see, I get weepy. Um, it has just meant me, when you age, see, I don't know, I get weepy. As you age, you become, especially as a woman, you become a little more invisible. And um, it's just really nice. And it has been nice just to be the star of the show, once in a while instead of the supporting actress or the extra, my daughter was a national level swimmer, and a superstar and, was amazing. And I supported her and everything like that. And so I sort of feel like this is my time to, be my own star and create, not that I'm a superstar or anything like that, but create something for myself that um, I'm proud of, So, oh, I'm weepy. I'm always weepy. So it's just been important for developing. I just feel like, my mom died young and didn't sort of get to do things like that for herself. And sorry that, I just don't want to be the person that misses out on. Even though I work hard and I complain about it sometimes so hard, I just don't want to miss out on living my life to the fullest.
It's good to see that emotion and just how much it means to you.
Yeah, it means the world to me because just when you go through a big struggle in your life, losing a mom really when she was young and vibrant, and you don't take things for advantage. You're waiting for the shoe to fall, and I think that's part of what motivates me is it's like the shoe could fall any moment and just go while it's still going, like because you don't know what tomorrow brings, and you don't know what could happen to your life that you have no control over. And that is a lesson that I've learned. So at least, I can try to control, my own destiny and my own successes and my own failures and my own experiences in life to some degree, small degree.
Yeah, I mean, my brother passed away when I was in college, and then my dad passed away shortly after college. Um, and they're a big part of the reason why I do Forager, and I've talked about that in a previous podcast episode, but like I definitely understand what you're saying, where it's like you never know what the next day will bring, so you need to make the most of what you have right now.
Right. And that's why I'm trying to, put limits on my working so I don't forget to live in the moment. And I get so caught up sometimes. It's easy to get caught up sometimes. Oh, I made another sale. Oh, I made another sale. And, it's so easy. It's so rewarding. I sort of feel like it's sort of like when like a slot machine, and it's like ding, 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 ding. It gets a little addictive. And it's true. And but it's just like, okay, why am I doing this? What are my goals for end happiness? And that's something, was so busy the first few years that now I have a little time to think about it and talk about it with friends. And I get asked all the time, where are you going? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And I really don't know. What is my end game? And I don't know. And, but that's okay. I'm okay with that because right now, here in the moment, I'm feeling pretty good about myself. And I know I say I shocked my husband. I shocked myself. My goal was, just to sell some cookies and make people happy and do this side business that would just bring me some joy and bring in a little extra income and it just took off and I really shocked myself too. It's not that I didn't think I was capable of doing these things, but I think maybe this stage in my life, you know what I mean? Like you think, all these young people, like tech is so easy for them. They, you know what I mean? All these things, filling up forms and the government and all these things are so easy for some people. And for me, they've been really hard, really, really, really hard. And people that, grow up a little bit younger, they're used to tech, they don't get it. And so that's that extra barrier, that extra challenge. And people, on social media, they're young, they're cute, they're vibrant, and you're like, yeah, well, I'm a grandma and, I got gray hair and wrinkles and, these are the people that,
You've got more followers than most of them. So
thank you. But then when you have those moments of doubt, you think, why do people follow me? Everybody gets that at times, you know what I mean? And, but then you have to stand back and look at where was I 2 years ago? Holy moly, I have come so far. I'm so proud of myself.
well, thank you so much, Tammy. Now, if people would like to learn more about you, where can they find you or how can they reach out?
Social media is always the best. And TikTok is hard for me. I don't have a ton of followers on there. I'm not always on there. Instagram messaging, emailing me, those are the best ways. I am on Facebook and I do answer all my messages on Facebook as well. But the absolute best place to contact me, and I will answer, is on Instagram messages.
Awesome. Well, I'll share links to all those in the show notes. And thank you so much for coming on the show and sharing with us today.
Thank you for having me.
That wraps up another episode of the Forrager podcast. For more information about this episode, go to forrager.com/podcast/167. And if you've been enjoying this podcast, I have a favor to ask you. If you are watching this on YouTube, you could take a quick moment and subscribe to my channel. That'll allow you to get updates for future episodes, and also click the thumbs up button to like this episode. And if you're listening to this on a podcast player, if you could take a quick moment to leave me either a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify, I'd really appreciate it and will help other people like you find this podcast. And finally, if you are thinking about selling your own homemade food, check out my free mini course where I walk you through the steps you need to take to get a cottage food business off the ground. To get the course, go to cottagefoodcourse.com. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.